what I'd like to now introduce is our panel discussion, and we're very fortunate today to have a panel which is chaired by Ainsley Cale, who is the co-chair and the consumer representative for the Health Systems Research Theme Executive Committee. So I welcome Ainsley to the stage, who will introduce our 5 panel members. Thank you.
Thank you, and hi everyone, it's great to be here. If we could call Denton Calendar. There you are, Denton. An HSR grant awardee, Sheila Kumaran, again, researcher. Now, do we have Leah on the phone? Yeah, that's fine. Lise Lafferty. And Catherine Leaney, who is a health consumer advocate. So we have a lot of people contributing to this session and probably very little time. However, if we are able, as Aidan mentioned earlier, we will open the floor to questions from you, and we'll see how we go. Checking watch. I believe that great learning can come from experiences, and today we are going to be hearing from the panellists of their experiences with consumer and community involvement. Already today, the presentations have been absolutely fantastic, and without playing favourites, I think that Leah really nailed, from a consumer perspective, the importance of not just consumer and community involvement, but how you interact with your health consumers. So there's questions for both researchers and consumers. On the basis that we will try and be orderly, if I may, we'll just go from Lise down to the end, and halfway through, just to make sure that Denton's paying attention, I might reverse it. So first of all, for the researchers, what does successful consumer involvement look like, and how could this in practice be undertaken in health systems research? Lise. I will mention these questions were devised by the EMCR committee. I had nothing to do with it.
And I'll add, they were not pre-shared with us.
And we'd like you to be succinct.
Okay, tell me again, the consumer, I was distracted because I was texting the photo.
Yes, what does successful consumer involvement look like, and how do you think it be put into practice in health systems research? You could say I've already told you, which I think has been covered.
I mean, working with
Anything
Leah,
else you'd like to add?
Working with Leah and working with different people globally with a history of injecting drug use experience, I think it's, you just got to have the conversation. So I think, I'm here trying to make it complicated, but it's really, you just got to have the conversation and be open to having the conversation. I said yesterday, when I go into prisons, I never go in like, oh, I'm the expert, I know things. And people say to me all the time when I'm doing interviews in prison, and I don't know. And that is always at the forefront of the work that I do. And so I have to lean on people who do know. And so I think that's the critical piece.
That's good. How about Sheila?
Okay. What was the question again? So it was about consumer. How do you know, if we have done a good job with consumer involvement, right? So from my perspective, I think if the consumers that you are involving in your research have the courage to tell you that what you're doing doesn't make sense, or it's ridiculous that you're doing this, and then the researcher is not offended, but take that input on board and make those changes to make a meaningful, research question and make those changes in the research protocols, then I think what you've done justice in saying that you've really, involved consumers in research, and you've not just, ticked the box for like your grant's sake. And I think also involving consumers throughout the cycle of the research project is important, not just when you're, like writing your grant application. And making sure that there is a process in getting feedback from them on a regular basis and incorporating that feedback into practice and having that structure in place, even, like right from the start, is very helpful. And how we could practically do it is like in my research projects, we have like a governance structure in place. We have a terms of reference that we, like consult with the consumers and get that approved. And we have the roles and responsibilities clearly highlighted so the consumers know what they're doing. So I think having those processes in place helps a lot, and that relationship and trust goes a long way.
Denton.
Thank you. So I guess for me, successful, I really don't like this term, consumer involvement. We need to fight against capitalism. We are not consumers and producers, but I will use it for the sake of simplicity today. Successful consumer involvement is the redistribution of power. The fewer decisions that I am making about a project, the better. And for me, I'm increasingly understanding my role as a scientist as a technical advisor, someone who knows how to navigate the systems of public health research to hopefully produce evidence that can be used for meaningful and effective change. I am not the one doing this, my scientific colleagues are not the ones doing this, but we as a community, as a group of people with shared interests and passions, we are doing this. So for me, anything that I can do to give away the power that the systems we live in have bestowed upon me as a cisgender, able-bodied, middle-class white man, anything I can do to get rid of that, the better. But that's hard, because I like power. People really generally like power. No, it's true. Power is good. It feels good. But anytime it feels so good and you're feeling like, yeah, I'm doing this, be suspicious and question yourself. That's what I try to do, but it's definitely an imperfect process.
Okay, you hold the microphone, because the next question to the researchers is, what's the key pieces of advice you received before you started consumer and community involvement, or what are key pieces of advice you wish you had received? Denton?
Oh, I have to go first?
You do. Yeah.
Well, I just went. As much as I love hearing my own voice, key piece, the one thing I wish I'd known, I guess it's, as I said, it's a lot about humility. This is one thing, like truly accepting. We work in a system that tells us we're really smart, right? This is kind of what the university is all about. So rejecting that right away is hard, but necessary. I wish I had accepted that earlier on. And the second, and this is such a cliche, but like start yesterday. Always be doing community involvement, have your partnerships in place, and be walking together with people and never going alone.
Sheila?
For me, I think I've been like really fortunate to have like good mentors to give me like the right advice. And some of the advices that I could think of is, getting consumers right from the start, like very early on in the like when we are actually brainstorming and thinking about the research idea itself. That was really helpful. And another, take home from the consumer training that was organized by the health systems research team. I thought the training was phenomenal. And some take-homes from there was, having that training for consumers as well, and thinking about the capacity development for consumers. So that was like a total different mindset. It was like, yeah, I'd never thought of it that way. Like, what does the consumer gain by, being part of the research and partnering with us? It's about equipping them and empowering them and giving them the opportunity to do that, comfortably. So that was like a really good advice. And so I've put that forward to, like, in one of our research projects, we have 4 consumers on a panel, and one is a very experienced consumer who has been on several panels, but the other three are like kind of new. And when I suggested this consumer training by the Health Consumers New South Wales, I think they were like really happy, and one already did it and found it like really helpful. But when I was presented that idea, I was like, will the consumers have time? Will they, like take it? So we have our own assumptions, and but and they prove us wrong all the time.
Please.
So I had this really fortunate opportunity when I was 15, and my mom decided at the end of the school year, you're grounded until you get a job. I have no idea why this was her approach, but it was, and I was 15, so I couldn't work. But I found a school nearby that had a summer program for kids with disabilities. So I spent the summer there, and it gave me a passion for working with people with different and diverse complex needs. And in doing so, I learned early on that you have got to listen to the people that you work with, because they know how to be worked with best. And they are the experts, and they can inform you. And then I proceeded to work in the disability sector for the next 10-ish years. And I worked in the home setting, and I worked in a variety of case management roles. And you can't you can't come in and tell somebody who is on the spectrum how you're gonna work with them. You need to know how they are gonna respond to you and what you need to be doing to make that a successful engagement. So that was my early learning piece that I think has helped set me up.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, here's one for Catherine and for Leah. We'll ask Catherine to go first, please. What are key pieces of advice that you could give to researchers about effectively and meaningfully involving and embedding consumers in research?
That's an easy one. The first one is get to know us very early in the piece. You've already made that point. So develop a relationship. I've been a consumer working with a group of researchers at Newcastle University since 2014, and their research has changed, but I've stayed with them. And so you develop a relationship with them, you get to know them, they get to know you, and it doesn't matter what they're researching, because as a consumer, the role that I play is asking those really tricky questions. Why are you doing this? How is it going to benefit the person in the long run? How long is it going to be? Those sorts of questions. The second part of the question was...
Well, is not just involving them, but embedding.
Oh, embedding them, yeah. So developing that long-term relationship and really getting to know them. And don't make assumptions about why we might be interested in your research or what we know about it. Both the researchers have already put up great big teams of people that they're working with. And I have a lot of researchers say to me, but, consumers don't understand. I'm doing foundation research, looking down a microscope. What would consumers know about that? And I say to them, when you're putting your team together, you're going to have maybe a health economist, you may have a bioinformatician, you may have all these different people that you don't know anything about. You're having to learn how to talk to them. So a consumer is just another person on your team. So don't think that we're some special people that you need to put in a little box and treat us with kid gloves. We're doing this because, as Steve said, we're passionate about it. We want you to be successful because we know that if you're successful, it's going to help people like us. And so treat us like you would the rest of the team. Bring us in early. We are a legitimate part of the team, and put us on those, make us a CI. And talk to us, involve us right from the very beginning.
Leah, you gave some great tips, but is there anything else you'd like to add?
Actually, I want to answer the researcher question.
Wait, hang on.
Do you hear me? Yes?
Hold on.
We hear you, but not the microphone.
Here we go.
Got it now? Yep.
Yes.
Thanks.
I just want to say, I very quickly want to answer the research one. A successful combination project is when you bring someone along to something like this and you let them into the system like this and you let them speak first and have the lion's share of the time. That's success. So I just wanted to say that firstly. The thing about is, look, with people who use drugs in particular, people are only willing to accept a couple of stories. There's either the victim story, there's the, we've been, had a hard childhood and we're covering the pain, or there's, the evil story and there's the criminal story, but there's a million stories and there's a million reasons why people use drugs and why they use them and the experiences that they've had. And I would say is be open to, I know that I research about looking for the similarities, but understand the differences and understand that it might not be what you've been led to believe that it's about. That community group is not going to reflect the things that you thought it was going to be. It's not what you imagined or got through the media. It's something completely different. Listen and watch, and you'll learn that. There's a million stories there, and it's not something we can bunch up into a group.
Fantastic. Thanks, Leah. Now to the researchers. Lise, we'll get you first, seeing as you've got the microphone. What has been your biggest challenge or indeed failure in terms of consumer involvement and research, and how did you overcome it?
I can't tell you how many failures I've had.
The biggest one.
The biggest one is...
We want
Sure,
the dirt.
the biggest one, so a lot of the work that I do is in Aboriginal health. So I do a lot of research in prison, and then I do a lot of research in Aboriginal health. And I got to tell you, going into prison, I feel a lot more confident, and I feel like I know what I'm doing, because I get to go into a physical environment knowing that I'm a guest, and then I get to go back to my car and leave. And when I'm doing Aboriginal health research, where's that boundary? Do you know, like, at what part do I get to come in as the guest? And when does that start? There's no, like, crossing that gate into the prison entry. So it's, always being mindful that I'm a guest and always being fearful that I'm going to fuck it up big and hurt somebody, because there has been so much trauma in Aboriginal communities and working with research. And I had a colleague that I was working with who somebody else had left, and I got handed this project that was data collection done, let's transcribe. We have an Aboriginal person on the project, and I worked so hard to try and support, and that person ended up resigning, and I, for months, blamed myself and didn't know where I had gone wrong and where I had failed to support them to feel okay in the university space, because it is so intimidating here if you have not come in as a pure academic to try and be doing research and be left to do analysis. And so that was one of my failures that hit me.
Thanks. Sheila?
I think for me was the mindset that I had, like, initially, like, about sharing power, and a kind of a fear that, like, what if, like, I hear things that are not fitting the boxes, the frameworks that we are using, or just fearful about the methodological rigor and the feasibility of doing everything the consumer says, especially if you have like 4 different consumers and you have like 4 different viewpoints, how are you going to manage that and stuff like that. So that was like a fear that I had to, like, when I was beginning to work with consumers. However, I just understood that, like you said, it's about partnering with them, and it's just, like, solving those problems together as a team. It's not all on you. You're like, as long as you're open and transparent about what you're doing and engaging with them, like, with a genuine intention, I think they all come on board, and it's like solving puzzles together, and like making those things work for the team, because they are there with you because they want to do help you and help do a meaningful research as well. So I think just overcoming that mindset. Yeah.
Thank you. And
yeah, this is a hard question, actually. I mean, hard personally. And Lisa, I'm pleased, not in a pleased way, but to hear this story about that staff member, because this is very similar things have happened to me. I mean, most of my work is with sex workers and transgender people. And sometimes it's easy to forget that health systems and universities and governments are inherently violent towards outsiders, right? These are violent spaces, whatever we might tell ourselves. So it's one thing to create a space, and I'll never forget, I was running a study of trans women of color in New York City for many years. We'd hired all these people, we were really excited, we had our consumers, we had multiple levels of governance, and still the university structure was so cruel to these young, vibrant, dynamic trans women who are also sex workers that, you know, like they'll probably never work with researchers again. And for me, this was my fault, in my personal opinion, of what happened, because I forgot it's not just about creating the space, it's about creating the safe space, the right space. You can't protect people from everything, but I was blinded by my own experience. I have a lot of regret about that. Not to turn this into a therapy session, but that was truly, for me, that's the lesson I took, and I'm sad that happened, but I'm glad that now I have this as something I never forget, because it has been my enduring experience moving forward as well. We have to be thinking about what safety means for our so-called consumers in these contexts.
That's excellent. Thank you, all of you, for that. There's a question for Catherine and for Leah. Again, I think you've both covered this, but you might wish to add more. And the question's, what have you found the most challenging about being involved in research? And was there a time when a researcher or research program's approach to your involvement could have been improved?
Okay, I'll answer the second part first. I've been a consumer in the cancer space since my own diagnosis of cancer in 2012, and was part of a consumer advisory panel for the university here. And a professor said he needed a consumer. So I put my hand up and I met with the professor and talked him through, you know, how we could work together. He applied for a grant. I helped him write the grant. He got the grant. So after, you know, I congratulated him and he said, well, I got the grant, don't need a consumer anymore.
Oh.
And I went, okay. So I didn't hear from him for about 3 years, and then into my inbox popped a grant application from this same professor. Oh, and lo and behold, when I got to the consumer section, it had my name on it. So I sent it back to him and I said, I am not your consumer. You told me 3 years ago you didn't need a consumer. You haven't been in touch with me since then. Take my name off this. I'm not working with you. Yes. Now, you said before it's about being a brave. I'm a particularly feisty consumer. And I haven't heard from him since, but that doesn't matter. But yeah, it's about having respect. And so that was a difficult situation, but I thought, well, I'm not going to just put my name. It's not just a tick in the box. You mentioned that. And for a lot of researchers, that's what it is, unfortunately. You're about to apply for a grant. It's 5 minutes to midnight. You've finally read the guidelines that say you need a consumer, and you go, oh my God, I need a consumer. So, you know, you contact an organisation and you say, quick, give me the name of somebody I can put on the list. So I used to do the matching of the consumers and researchers for Cancer Voices for 3 years. And if I'd get them 5 minutes to midnight, I'd send them back saying, no, sorry, that's an insult to our consumers. I'll give you a consumer for next year's grant, but not this year. So, sorry, now I forgot the first part of the question.
Well, it was really what has been the most challenging.
Yeah.
Yes.
One of the other things is the acronyms. You all talk in acronyms and you all talk to each other, and so it's you learning to speak to somebody who doesn't use acronyms and doesn't understand the university systems, and being prepared for when we say, sorry, I don't understand. What do you mean by that? So being humble enough to go, yep, maybe I haven't explained it well enough, because if you can't explain it to me as a consumer who knows nothing about it, then how are you going to explain it to those people who read your grant applications, who are not all from the same discipline as you? So I read a lot of grant applications as well. And so, you know, it's about, you have to be able to explain it to people in 5 minutes in a way that people can understand it. So, yep.
All I can say is yes. Leah.
Okay, so I think the most, I guess, I mean, I did talk a lot about this before, I guess, but I think where we're being used rather than included is, you know, something that's particularly uncomfortable, when it's sort of expected that we will run around for the good of research and identify people, that people can be interviewed, etc., when they don't have access to that community, and sort of can use you as a guide into that without any sort of recognition of that role and sort of, it's sort of taking it on as though it was their doing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I find that really difficult. Yeah, I mean, apart from that, look, you can really tell a researcher who actually cares about the fact that that what they're doing is going to make a change. It's going to affect positively the lives of the people that they're looking at, and those who are simply, that is not meaningful for. And it's hardworking. When your heart is in something, it's really hard to work with people when their heart isn't in it. I guess that's one thing that I will say. And apart from that, there are also some studies where that seems so obvious and you think you haven't done your primary research, you haven't talked to people, you don't know anything about this, you've come up with some topic that really isn't relevant to us or is, really easily explainable or whatever. And why don't you do something that's actually going to benefit, the cohort that you're looking into? And so that's I find that really difficult as well.
Lou, thank you. That's terrific. Now to the researchers. There are 3 questions rolled into this one. What were some of the barriers you encountered in starting your consumer researcher collaboration? How were they resolved? And I think the $64,000 question is, were the difficulties anything to do with you being EMCRs?
I'll go first.
Yes, we'd love you to.
I touched on this when I was speaking earlier with Leah. I mean, my PhD supervisor's phenomenal, but did not connect me to anybody with the lived experience that was relevant to my research. And being able to meet those people was just impossible and awkward, and I had no idea how to go about it. And even when I contacted Leah, I mean, I was terrified sending this email to this random person with lived experience, who to me is so much, I mean, you are the expert, Leah, I'm not. And so I'm coming to you and I'm asking you for something, and I don't know what you're going to say to me, and it was terrifying. And I had my husband read through the email before I hit send, because I needed somebody else to just go, it's okay, you're communicating all right, and have that there. And so getting the guts to reach out. And I speak to one of the people that was in the photo earlier is Rachel Halford, who is the CEO of the Hepatitis C Trust in the UK. And then Louise Hansford, who is also from the community and working in this space of hepatitis C in the UK. But I mean, we always talk about it's a two-way fear, and we forget that. And we forget that it's actually, it's intimidating for us to go up to community, just as it can be intimidating for community to come up to us, because we all think somebody's got the power, and we don't know how to manage that.
Thank you. Sheila?
I was, earlier on, I was talking about, my mindset. On the other hand, when I was, recruiting people, we had, an expression of interest distributed for consumers to fill in and express their interest to be on the, the consumer panel. And then when I was interviewing, talking to them, they were they didn't really understand the consumer partnership part of it. They only, because the idea of consumers being research participants is widely accepted and widely prevalent, but then the idea of partnering with researchers was kind of new to all of these people who I was talking to, and I had to really break that boundary and tell them that, we really want to partner with them, we're giving you power and you can, influence, make an influence. So that was one thing. And I had less confidence to do that. In the first few conversations, I was where do I, how do I explain it and stuff like that. But the other major barrier once we had the panel up and running, it was the communication, the jargon that I was using without, unintentionally, and even the stuff that I was writing, I was thinking I'm doing a good like layperson language where I was not. And my consumers like pointed that to me, and like, I don't understand what dissemination means. And I'm like, oh, how do I say it? Like, even simple things, like we just take it for granted because it's been like a routine thing that we do and hear and talk. So just, stopping and thinking from their shoes and making sure that, like they really understand what you are saying and doing was a barrier I'm continuously facing and trying to work on.
That's good. Anton.
I'm going to sound like a broken record. All my barriers come from institutions, from processes of human resources and finances. I have worked for many large universities and health research centers in all parts of the world, and this is consistently the thing. Actually, and I'm not just saying this to suck up because I'm here at UNSW, UNSW is the best of all of the universities and health orgs that I work with. I find that if you explain what's going on and you use this language and these rationality, and I'm thrilled to hear the NHMRC is putting forward new guidelines around this, but it's slow. I mean, anytime you talk about, I remember once I proposed to pay an expert sex worker as an advisor $150 an hour for her time, and the ethics committee lost their mind. But in that same study, I was paying doctors the same amount, $150. And I don't know if you know the going rate for an hour of a sex worker's time, but it is more than $150. Yes. So, I mean, it just takes time to explain it. But man, it's a constant fight. It's a constant fight that I go through almost every day. And if I could dismantle HR systems globally and replace them with something new, I would. Unfortunately, this is not a power I have, so you always got to play the hand you're dealt. But man, HR gives me the rub.
You're not alone. Now,
no offense to HR people here.
We have run out of time, so I'll have to wrap it up, but I do encourage all of you to speak to any of the speakers, presenters today, including Steve and Holly and others who have not had the chance to be part of the panel. A very special thank you to Leah to undertake this work from afar. And we do like that photograph of you. You are gorgeous, and as is the piece of advice. So I started off by saying that we learn from experiences. And I really want to thank the panel for sharing their experiences. And I think there were some wise words and a lot to be taken home. From my perspective, I thought the big thing was about having an open mind. Having an open mind, not just about your research, but about health consumers. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy your lunch. Oh, hang on, we've got Sal first, haven't we? I beg your pardon. See you at lunchtime.
Okay, so I get the job to sum up what has again been a really great couple of hours. Thanks so much to the EMCR committee. You keep standing up these great events. Our leader, Aidan, well done. Special thank you to Anna as she's taking photographs of me. Thank you for all of your hard work. We couldn't do this without you, so thanks very much. So Dave Simar is here, and I don't know if you all know Dave, but he is our Deputy Dean of Research Operations. Dave, do you want to just stand up and wave at people? So Dave is a wonderful leader at UNSW who works very closely with the theme leads. We met last week, the theme leads, Dave, and the research development managers, and I said that the EMCR committee here in HSR is the shining light of health systems research. Dave witnessed it, Anna witnessed it, and I really believe that, so fantastic work. It was so great to see some of the seed grants come to life. You know, we actually have a unique process with the health systems theme where we ask shortlisted candidates to present their work. We provide feedback to both the successful and the unsuccessful people who give presentations. And this has been so great for us to really learn about the great research that's going on, but also meet the people and really kind of understand the passion that people have for the work. So I'm really, really grateful for that. The other thing that I loved about today was the impact we're already demonstrating. This is a young theme. We were only 2 years old. Look at what's happening already. And Alison, I loved your comment about the collaborations that we kind of force by the structure of the grants, but we're seeing benefit of that. Where everyone's mixing with people that they wouldn't otherwise mix with across the university. So a few reflections from me. I'll whiz through this. We cared about authentic consumer engagement from the get-go, walking the talk. And one of the first people I actually spoke to when I became theme lead was Ainsley. I had no idea what I was doing. Absolutely no idea. And I can remember saying to Ainsley, I don't know where to start and I don't know how to make this work, but can we talk about this and work out how we're going to drive this forward together? So in retrospect, given the conversation today, I realised that that was us and our partnership. And it's worked, and it's added so much value to what we do, including Steve, who's also a member of the committee. The richness and the perspectives that they bring to our work is truly phenomenal. So thanks to both of you. A couple of things. Involvement is one way, engagement is two way. Let's not forget that. There's great materials available, but what we're talking about is when the rubber hits the road, the experiential learning. And this is what we've been talking about today. So the network that you develop to find out how to actually do this beyond the materials is absolutely critical. And finally, Leah and Catherine, thanks so much. Some really strong take-homes from the reflections of both of you. It really is a great privilege to gain the insights of people with lived experience in our work. Respect is fundamental, but it takes time to develop that. This is about relationship building. Like we do with all of our other collaborators, we build relationships. We need to do that too. Language is important. Listening is critical. And we really need to put people and populations at the centre of everything that we do. So with that, let's go have lunch. Thanks, everyone.